Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. We're shooting live from 2 Expose You Studio. We have Mr. Darrell Goodman, he's the founder. Mr. Ray Harvey, he's the chief engineer. I have as my special guest, Dr. Sabrina Pinckney. How you doing there, Dr. Pinckney?
I am fine. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you for coming on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been in counseling for over 25 years now, 25 plus. Recently, I was able to retire from the school district here in Charleston after working approximately 28 years in the school system. But my passion is just children and families and just wanting them to have a healthy life, wanting them to have a healthy family time. And sometimes I understand that things go wrong and they might need a counselor. So I just try to help establish that balance back into the family.
You're the author of a book, Elly Gets Even. Tell the audience a little bit about that book.
Elly Gets Even. So Elly is, I would say, about 6 years old. Her mom and dad got a divorce, but during that time, Elly and her mother became extremely close. A very close relationship, and they did everything together. You would even say that Elly thought her mom was her best friend. And the twist happens when her mom meets a new friend and decides to bring him over to meet her. Well, Elly is not happy. She feels like someone is taking her place. And so she does everything to show it. And when I say everything, she does everything. But her mom has to help her adjust to this new experience and recognize that she's still loved.
Okay, Dr. Pinckney, is there a connection between your life and your mother and the book Elly Gets Even?
Well, I never really thought about that, but I would have to say yes. Growing up, it was me and my 2 sisters. I was the oldest, and being that it was 3 girls, we did a lot with my mom. She would have what we call girl time for the 3 of us, and during that time, we would sit down and we would talk, we would do arts and crafts. But what I really remember the most during our little girl time is we would sit in the backyard and we would talk about our dreams, and she would share her dreams and how it has come to life or what she's still wanting. And I think that for me, that was just a very special time because she made us feel loved. And most of all, she made us feel heard. And I think that's what Ellys Mom ultimately has to do for Elly, make her feel heard. And I just think that's so important for children, is that they're heard, and especially by the adults that mean so much to them.
And Dr. Pinckney, what would you consider to be the best advice you have ever given someone?
I think the best advice that I have ever given someone would be to listen. I know that sounds simple, but to listen with the heart, because so many people in this world feel like they're not heard. They're talking, but they feel like no one's really listening. And I know when I was growing up, my dad would always say, you have 2 ears and a mouth. And I think God gave you 2 ears for a reason. It's because you're supposed to do more listening. That really didn't come across so much to me until one day when my daughter was in her teen years, and she looked me in the eyes and she said, I just need you to listen. And I think as a counselor, I'm so used to not only listening, but trying to fix things. So I wanted to fix her problem for her. But when she told me, I need you to just listen, that really was profound. And it made me realize that, sometimes people don't want you to fix everything. But if you can just listen, then they can feel validated. And in a sense, that kind of starts that shift into a change. So my best advice would be sometimes just listen.
Okay, that's some good advice. What happened in life to cause you to decide to start writing and publishing your book right now? Or how long has your book been out?
My book just came out in December.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. And as far as writing, I started writing when I was, I would say, in middle school. I wrote my first little piece, and I remember it because it was about my best friend at the time. Mm-hmm. And I thought that she just talked everything that she knew. It's like if you tell her a secret, she would soon tell somebody else. So it was called I Trusted You. And it was based on that. But I really started writing more in high school. And actually, the piece that I just published was a short story that I wrote in high school, and I turned it into a picture book. But I have a lot of writing, a suitcase full of writings, matter of fact, that I still have. And I'm so thankful that I kept those writings because I don't write as often as far as short stories. And I think throughout the year, time just came on and you just don't have the time to do the things that you once were able to do when you were younger. So I'm so happy that I kept my writing.
If this was a mirror in front of you, how would Dr. Pinckney define grateful?
Very good question. If I was looking in a mirror right now, I think I would define grateful as being thankful and appreciative, but for so much more than, what people think about when they think about grateful. Sometimes they think about the things that they have, the things that they want. But my gratefulness comes into being by just knowing that God has a plan for all of us. And sometimes, as they say, we go up or down in the valley. And during those times, it's hard. And, believe me, I've had my hard times. But just to see now, like during my retirement and everything, how everything just really has meaning and things come full circle. And especially like with my writing, I'm just so grateful that I have that opportunity to still pursue my passion that I had from such a young age. And I think about people who start out with such great passion and just a vibe for life, and over time things happen and they're not able to hold on to that anymore. But I'm just so grateful that God has given me the opportunity to continue to pursue this passion that I have for writing, and hopefully people will enjoy it and get something out of it.
You are the executive director and founder of an organization called On Solid Ground Counseling. Tell the audience about this program.
So in 1999, I founded On Solid Grounds Counseling because I just realized that so many people, especially African Americans, were hurting from past events that just was never resolved. And so I wanted to go deep into our culture and really help people heal from things that they didn't understand because it got lost in generations. But I just really believe that, and I'm not going to say it's just for the African American race because it's probably all races, but I know the African American experience, especially coming from slavery on up, that there's just so many things that our ancestors could not talk about because of the pain and the hurt. And so it just got buried and it manifests itself into something else in another generation. And so it's just been my passion to help people kind of understand things in order to heal from them.
There's a lot of things that we go through in life right now that people, there's mental health, there's, I guess, a lot of things that we're trying to deal with. How is it so complicated in today's society, and how do you tell people how to deal with this thing called life?
Well, first of all, and that's a very good question because, you know, being in my profession, I see so many people struggling when it comes to just coping with life. But for me, one of the main things that I do, and I've learned over time, is to really have a positive mindset. Try to start your day with a positive perspective on life. Kind of let go of the things that you can't control in the moment. I tell people to chunk it. In other words, handle a small portion at a time. Also, another thing that I think is very important in this thing called life, and we're seeing it right now with this pandemic, is connections. We have to form positive connections. I try to form it with my family. My family is extremely important to me. Also with friends, and just doing the simple things with them and trying to enjoy that, just that basic part of life. Also, try to find some things that you could de-stress yourself daily. Some people meditate, some people run. But try to find something that works for you that will let go of the stress. Also, I think to deal with life, you have to be flexible. You have to kind of take time to look at the things that you have dealt with and be grateful for it. Be grateful because your experiences, you know, are the things that make you who you are today. And just know that you are an instrument for someone else. And then lastly, you know, Oprah always she says to always state what you're grateful for, the small things, not the big things, the small things. And this year, especially because of this pandemic, I made grateful jars for my family, and that's something that we're all doing now, is we're writing the small things that we're grateful for, because just know that it doesn't have to be. And I think that if we can take all of those things and, of course, just talk, have a voice and talk about just your experience and stay humble. And I think with those things wrapped up, we could do a pretty good job of dealing with this thing, this thing called life. But I think that's something that my brain wanted to say too, is make sure you're showing love every step of the way.
On solid ground. How did you come up with that name for your counseling?
You know, it's funny. My sister Eleanor actually came up with the name On Solid Grounds, because I was thinking and thinking and thinking, but I always go to her when it comes to creative things. And she came out with a few names, and then she threw out On Solid Grounds. And she said, because people need to go through what they're going through and then find themselves on solid ground. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do for people, is bring them back on solid ground. So that's how we came up with the name.
Okay. With a doctoral degree in counseling psychology and working in the field for over 25 years, how does Dr. Pinckney deal with this thing called life?
I think with those steps that I just mentioned, but I have learned a lot from counseling. I think that if anyone is trying to understand life, then read things that have to do with counseling and just better yourself. One thing that I tell my families is that, seek. Don't just go by what you were taught. Because, yes, we've been taught a lot in our lives, and I would say that for everyone. But there's still something to learning for yourself and just growing. And I think that for me, I've always tried to just be open when it came to life. I tried to understand that just because something happened, it doesn't make it bad. It just makes it something that you have to deal with. I think so many people get stuck in what happened and, oh, it's just the worst thing. But things are meant to happen to be a lesson, a learning lesson. And if we look at it like that, maybe we don't have to be left with the pain of what happened so often. Because I do believe that people can heal. I do believe that people can move past what has happened. I do think it takes time. But in life, things have a way, once we have moved over it or have gotten over it, it has a way of not being able to impact us as greatly, the bad things that is talking about. So my way of handling life is just to remain open, know that God is putting lessons in front of you to make you the kind of person I believe that He has made you to be purposeful for this world.
Okay, in your book, Elly Gets Even, I know you talked about the mother and how Elly was missing the mother and all that, but I didn't hear too much about the father. Now, what are you saying about the father, or shouldn't she be missing the father just as much as the mother, or what do we say about the man in that, in that family?
Oh, definitely. And in the original story, Elly talks more about her father. But in the book, of course, because it's a picture book, we had to cut out a lot of things in the story. But you do hear her talking about the father in small ways, as far as when the mother brings her friend over, she compares him to the father, saying that he should not be sitting at the table because this is her father's seat. So I believe that her father is very important in her life. I just think that she's just with the mother, so that's just where the immediate focus is. Unlike Elly, I did grow up with both of my parents being in the home. And, my father was very instrumental to the family. He had one of those presents that, you just wanted to please. You looked up to him, and he was definitely a role model for us. My dad, at the time, played golf a lot, and he almost went pro. That's how good he was. And, growing up, of course, we didn't know a lot of things, but later just finding out like a lot of the racism that he had to endure and fight against. And he was extremely instrumental in trying to make big changes and movements happen as far as for African Americans being able to even play on the golf course right here in Charleston and many other golf courses. So that's kind of what I remember him to be, is like that shaker of change, and a powerful one from my eyesight as a child. And I think that, in a sense, that's what I wanted to do with emotion. I grew up more as a shy person and kind of wanted to have a voice. And I think that's what writing did for me. And I think that's what counseling also represents for me. And so as I am counseling, I always try to help people find their voice and to validate their voice, and to know that not only is the voice important, but the experience behind the voice is extremely important. And I just want them to know that. I want them to love whoever it is that they are, and not to let people change them unless it's for the better, because that's called growth, and we all have to grow.
Dr. Pinckney, describe that support that you got from your family, especially going for the highest education you can get, that doctoral.
Yeah, I think, like I said, my family was extremely supportive. I mean, whatever I needed, just like most families, they were there. But my dad, from a young age, always preached about education. You need your education. That's the way to survive in this world. And I think hearing that, it pushed me to know that I needed to make sure that I had what I needed to survive in this world. And I wanted a psychology degree. And I remember after I got the psychology degree, one of my aunt's friends asked me, she was like, what are you going to do with that? Because there's not much to do on a bachelor's level. And after I started working in the field, I kind of saw that she was right. So definitely needed to go back and get my master's, and I immediately did that. But then there was always something inside of me that just felt like, you need more. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I felt like I needed more. So I went to get my doctoral degree. And, I really am just so happy, because I think my education has also been a very big part of who I am and what I have learned, and just kind of coming into myself.
Where does Dr. Pinckney see herself at 5 years?
Very good question. And now that I have retired, I see myself more in my writing, my creative parts that writing will bring. I remember my aunt that kind of helped me keep my writings. She told me one day, she read one of my plays, matter of fact, and she tried to change one of the words. And I remember telling her, Stephanie would never say that. And that was the character's name. But I understand what writers mean when they say the characters kind of come to life, because it's just certain things that you would not see them doing or saying. But one thing, after she read my story, she said to me, I could see this at the Dock Street Theater. And I remember saying to her, no. But it was that dream that she had for me that I think I adopted and was the reason why I kept my stories. I think I would have thrown them away had she not planted that inside of my spirit, because there was a part of me that wanted it to happen. Even though I didn't believe it could happen, I wanted it to happen. And I think that's why I still have my stories. So to answer your question is, I think my circle will become full when I could see my play, the one that she read and saw at Dock Street Theater. Because at the age of 31, my Aunt Princetta died at with a brain aneurysm. And, she was always so instrumental in my life. So after college, I lost her and didn't get to go into my adult life with her. And I miss her every day. And so for me to be able to see my story at the Dock Street Theater would just mean so much to me. And so in the next 5 years, that's what I will be trying to do.
If someone wanted to get in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
They could find me on the website, on Solid Grounds website, www.onsolidgrounds, and that's with an S at the end of ground.com. They could reach me there, or they can call the office at 843-795-8212. I'm also on Instagram under Dr. Pink, and that's Pink, Pinck. So those are 3 ways that they could find me.
How about your book?
My book, they could find my book at Amazon.com. They could find it at BarnesandNoble.com. They could find it at Walmart.com and Target.com. And that's Elly Gets Even.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sabrina Pinckney, for coming on the show, and look forward to having you come back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, watching the show. You be encouraged. Thank you.